Nick and Daisy had been a duo, Team Us, for a solid 5 years. Long enough to have accidentally adopted a shared Our song, and to flawlessly finish each other's favorite movie quotes. But as it turned out, not quite long enough to fully understand every twist in each other's wiring. Right after their wedding, Nick's parents handed over the keys to an old condo they used to rent out. It came with late 70s brown cabinetry, a popcorn ceiling, and avocado-colored tiles in the bathroom. Nick called it retro. Daisy, on the other hand, said it looked like a Pinterest project begging for divine intervention. But since they weren't being haunted by mortgage notifications, they gratefully accepted the gift and moved in. Nick sold Chevys at a dealership on the west end of town. He could list off trim packages like reciting his ABCs, and most months his commission was enough to keep the fridge full and the electricity flowing. Daisy worked at a boutique dental clinic, welcoming patients into a eucalyptus-scented lobby that reeked of upscale insurance plans. Their life rolled along in a pleasant middle gear. Tacos on Tuesdays, Netflix marathons on Fridays, and hand-in-hand strolls through the farmer's market on lazy Sunday mornings. But something began to shift in Daisy's rhythm. At first, it was subtle. A tired sigh here, a barely there eye roll there. Small complaints about how people were draining. She used to take pride in making her own money, but lately she'd mention how some of her friends had husbands who encouraged them to stay home and work on becoming their best selves. Nick picked up on the underlying message instantly. But his salary wasn't ready to carry them both, not with student loans still trailing behind like unwanted baggage. So he pinned his hopes on a promotion. After giving himself a pep talk in the rearview mirror, he stepped into his manager's sleek glass office and made his case. "You're a real asset, Nick," his boss said. "But budgets are frozen until next quarter." It was corporate speak for a gentle no, but to Nick, it felt like a tire had blown out mid-commute. On the drive home, he rehearsed how he'd break the news. Daisy didn't take it well. First came the flash of frustration. He must not have tried hard enough. Why didn't he fight for what he deserved? Then came the freeze. A stretch of chilly silence, the kind where the television becomes the loudest voice in the room. Nick took to sleeping on the couch, not just to give things time to cool down, but to avoid the heavy weight of her disappointment pressing against him in bed. A week later, over morning coffee, Daisy casually announced that she was picking up extra shifts. Her coworker, she said with a shrug, kept extending her vacation. Then she added she'd been eyeing the newest iPhone and figured a little overtime wouldn't hurt. Nick recognized the coded message immediately. That night, he opened a spreadsheet and labeled one column phone surprise, vowing to save up for it even if it drained every ounce of energy he had. The days began to blur. Daisy's long hours at the clinic, Nick's back-to-back deals on Silverados. He kept meaning to ask about that never-returning coworker, but fatigue always erased the thought before he got the chance. Then came a Sunday morning. The alarm hadn't even stirred when Daisy slipped out, saying she had another early shift. Nick shuffled into the kitchen, started boiling water for tea, and was mid-yawn when his phone lit up with a call from Alex, his best friend since T-ball. Alex never called before noon unless something was seriously wrong. "You up?" Alex asked, voice tight. "Meet me at Benny's Diner." "Like, now?" Nick threw on jeans, left the kettle behind, and 10 minutes later slid into a booth while the scent of sizzling pancakes hung in the air. Alex wasted no time. "Remember Greg Parker?" he asked. "The hotel guy. Inherited a small fortune." Nick nodded. Greg was the type who ordered extra dessert just because he could. "Well," Alex said, "Greg walked into Daisy's clinic last week. Full smile makeover, veneers, the whole Hollywood deal." She checked him in. Just standard pleasantries. No alarm bells. They chatted casually, nothing out of bounds. But later that day, she messaged him from her personal number. Alex had shown Nick the entire conversation, clearly trying to give him a heads-up. It wasn't vague. She hadn't left room for misinterpretation. She flat out asked Greg on a date. Nick's pulse hammered so hard he could feel it behind his teeth. He tried, really tried, to rationalize it. Maybe she was just being overly friendly in a customer service kind of way. Alex wasn't having it. She literally said the word date, man. And they already met once. He swears all they did was grab lattes, but she was definitely guiding things towards something more, after hours. That's when the details began lining up. Nick recognized the name of the coworker Daisy claimed kept extending her vacation, the very excuse she'd used for covering those extra shifts. His throat clenched around a growing knot. He asked Alex for proof, screenshots, timestamps, the whole trail. Then, with shaky hands, Nick called Greg directly. The hotel air sounded sheepish the second he answered. Yes, Daisy had met up with him. Yes, it was a Wednesday night, the same night she told Nick she was covering yet another double. Nick's stomach flipped. Keeping his voice neutral, Nick asked Greg for one more favor: set up another dinner. Make sure the invitation had romantic overtones. And when she leaned in, text him. Greg hesitated, unsure if it was guilt or curiosity that made him finally agree. Friday came with the weight of a thundercloud. Greg made a reservation at a riverside restaurant. Nick waited a block away, hands clamped so tightly to the steering wheel his knuckles lost all color. At 7:13 p.m., the message came through. She's holding my hand across the table. Nick inhaled once, slow and deep. Then he stepped out of the car, walked straight into the restaurant, and headed for the booth in the corner. Daisy's hand was exactly where Greg had said it would be. So, Nick asked, voice dangerously calm, how's the extra shift going tonight? Daisy's complexion turned ghostly. She tried to pull her hand back, but Nick's gaze held her frozen, harder than any physical grip could. Greg stammered out a half apology, to Nick, to Daisy, then made a quiet exit. Mission complete. Nick didn't raise his voice. He didn't explode. He just told her, clearly and evenly, to take whatever she needed from the condo. Because by morning, the locks would be changed. Daisy searched for something to say, but came up empty. She followed him out in stunned silence. On Monday, Nick stopped by the dental clinic. He sat down with the office director and walked them through a full timeline. Another receptionist, clearly fed up with covering for Daisy's mysterious breaks, revealed she'd seen Daisy texting at least 2 other well-off patients. HR didn't need more than 90 seconds. Her employment was over. Daisy bounced around couches, gave bartending a go, but had burned too many bridges by her 3rd night behind the bar. She still had a phone full of contacts, men who'd maybe fill a void, but once they sensed she needed more than flirty banter, the blue text bubbles stopped lighting up. Nick filed for divorce. Daisy didn't contest it. For about a month, Nick's life looped like a bad hold music track. Work, eat and eat burritos, midnight YouTube spirals. The condo was painfully quiet, but at least it was real. At 2:14 a.m. on a random Tuesday, Daisy sent a single DM, "Hi." He watched the typing dots flicker, then vanish. He said nothing. Autumn crept in. Jackets came out of storage. Alex finally dragged Nick to trivia night at Shamrock Tavern. Their team landed next to Ellie and Brooke, nurses who crushed every single question on 80s rock. Brooke's laugh had no agenda. It just warmed the room like bonfire smoke. On their 3rd date, Nick asked the big one, if money didn't matter, what would your perfect day look like? Without missing a beat, Brooke replied, sleep in. Rescue senior dogs. Take a road trip to Glacier National Park. But here's the thing. I'm weird, Nick. I actually like earning my own paycheck. Something loosened inside him at those words. Something he hadn't realized was still knotted. A few weeks later, during a charity 5K, Greg nudged Nick and joked about promoting him from fake date decoy to best man someday. Nick laughed, and couldn't deny the idea felt right. One chilly November morning, Nick and Brooke adopted a jittery, gray-muzzled terrier at a local park event. They named her Maple, after the street where everything in Nick's life had first unraveled, and somehow rebuilt itself. Driving home with the windows cracked, Maple's ears flapping in the breeze, Nick finally understood. The math was cruel, but simple. Subtract one person who saw him as a stepping stone. Add two souls, one woman, one dog, who just wanted to walk beside him. The clock on his Chevy's dashboard ticked forward. The skyline drifted by. And for the first time since that night in the restaurant, Nick smiled, really smiled. The kind of smile without strings, disclaimers, or small print. Just the clean, bright promise of an ordinary day done right.